Hi everyone, good to see you. I hope you're all well. As you can see, I've got my pinny on today. I hope you've seen the ingredients and things. We're gonna have a go at making Play-Doh because I was thinking about what can we make, what can we do? And the story today is about a very special meal that Jesus had with his disciples. And it made me think about all the special meals that I've ever had. Have you got meals that remind you of people? We've been thinking a little bit about my husband's father this week, as we sadly had to say goodbye to him, but we were thinking about the best things, his potato salad and his roast meals and his curries that he used to cook. And we've got meals that remind us of people and remind us of things. And the story today is Jesus' special meal with people that were to remind them of something very special. But I thought we'd actually make something that you've probably got in your cupboard. Don't worry if you haven't got it all, but I know you're probably missing the Play-Doh a little bit from Noah's Ark. So should we have a go? Let's see if we can. You'll need these things. You'll need some flour, if you can get hold of any, some salt, some oil, a little bit of food colouring, a bowl, and some measures, but I'll talk about the measures as we go along. The ingredients that I put down on the this link as I sent it to you, that's measures, but I'm going to do just half of that today because I don't want to waste precious flour. So sieve your flour. You need, I've just got half a cup. You can use a whole cup if you want a bigger batch. Half a cup of flour. Make sure it's nice and flat off the top because there we are. So half a cup of flour, sieve it in, and a quarter of a cup of salt, because whatever the measure you use, you need half the amount of salt to flour. So I've used a half, so I need a quarter of salt. Oops, that's about right. Sieve that as well. It goes through the sieve quite nicely. Ooh. Those last few bits through. Now, if you've got any of this, have some, but you don't need to. It's cream of tartar. I've done a bit of research and I've looked it up, and you don't need this. It's just actually stabilises it. But if you've got it in your cupboard, bung it in. It just makes it last a little bit longer. I did see something online today where you could put a bit of lemon juice in instead of the water. It does the same sort of thing. It's to do with an acid or something, but I'm not a chemist and it kind of works. Okay. That's the dry ingredients: flour, salt and cream of tartar. And now you need the wet ingredients. So because I'm doing half the mixture, it's a dessert spoon of oil. Ooh, that's a little bit too much. It might be a little bit greasy, but that's fine. And the same amount of boiling water. So I'm just going to put the kettle on a minute. Please excuse the noise. It's boiled already, so it shouldn't take long. Half a cup of water and a little bit of food colouring. Now I'm going to make green today because I fancy a bit of green peas and lettuce and things, but you can make whichever thing you want. Now I'm going to just do the water. Oops. And as I pour this in, I'm going to pour it over the colouring so the colouring dissolves, and then mix it in. And then just have a good old mix. Oh, this is coming out quite a nice lettuce green, isn't it? Now, because you've done really boiling water, it will all come together and it will mix. If it looks a bit like this, don't worry. Don't be tempted to put more flour in. Just keep going, keep mixing, 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 and it will tighten up. It sounds like it won't, but it will, and it's getting stiffer and stiffer as the hot water is absorbed, and it's to do with the mixing and mixing. Oh, that's getting really stiff now, and it does come together. It's great fun. It doesn't take very long, as you can see. I'm sorry about the banging. I should have used a plastic bowl, but I wanted you to be able to see through it. It's coming together. You think it's not going to, and then suddenly it does. It comes together and comes away from the bowl. Now this is where I put a rubber glove on now because it's really hot. Remember, you've put boiling water in it, so I put rubber gloves on just because, first of all, I don't want green hands, and secondly, I don't really want to burn them either. And it's great fun, and this is where the fun bit comes. You just keep kneading it until it becomes the right consistency for what you want. And as you can see, look, isn't it amazing? It's actually looking like Play-Doh already. It's very, very hot. Very hot. So just keep kneading it. If you feel it's a little bit sticky, put a bit of flour on the board. But look, it's like magic. It's just incredible, isn't it? I'm so glad you've been able to see me make it, because now you realise how easy it is each time I make it. And you can do this at home. There we go. Just keep kneading it. You'll feel when it's gone right, because it actually then stops being so sticky. And as you can see, it's not sticking to my gloves now. This must look very funny, just having a close-up of my hand. Thank you, Phoebe, for videoing us again. Right, it's getting cooler now. That's good. So once you've got your Play-Doh, you can use it to make anything you want, really. I made some other colours this morning. I made some yellow, and this is the Play-Doh I've made without the cream of tartar, and it works just as well. As you can see, look, it looks just like normal Play-Doh. And so you could actually pretend that you were having a meal. You could make some food and make your favourite meal. You could get a paper plate and you could maybe make some peas. These are a bit far, maybe a bit darker green you could have had for peas. Make some, oh, I don't know, chips. You could have a nice bit of, this looks a bit of a salami colour, doesn't it? Don't know what this could be. Oh, I know, let's make a rasher of bacon. Look, a nice rasher of bacon. Can you see how it's going? You could even experiment, have a little bit of green, a little tiny bit of yellow, and a little bit of the red colour. Mix it together, and hopefully, if I've done my science right, it should come out a little bit of a browny colour. Let's put a bit more red in. Might need a bit more red colouring. But it's just such good fun. As you can see, this has just taken, what, minutes, hasn't it? And it doesn't take very long. And you should come out with a nice sort of bread colour. So there we go, look, a nice bread roll to go with your bacon and chips and peas. What fun. That didn't take long. If you can't make Play-Doh, why don't you have a go at making a meal, your favourite kind of meal, from a different sort of thing? Have a look. Maybe got one of these lying around. If you're next shopping, pick up a magazine full of food that you can just cut out and you can stick out. So if I just move my other things around, actually I'm quite pleased with that bacon. I found a lovely picture of a roast chicken today, and I thought I'd put it with some roast parsnips and even some roast potatoes. That's my favourite kind of meal. How about playing shops or doing something? Look at the cardboard packaging that you've got. Unfortunately, the only cardboard packaging I've got is of unhealthy things, because all my healthy things don't have pictures of what they do. Funny that, isn't it? That's why I needed the recipes. But why don't you cut out the things that are on the boxes before you recycle them? And you could pretend that this is actually a real lolly, or you could pretend that you've had fajitas. Be creative. Have a little think about food and your favourite kinds of food, because it's really important to sit down and have a meal together. And I'm sure that you're doing that as families much, much more than you did before. And it's really special. And our story today is about Jesus's last meal that he had. We call it the Last Supper. Now, just to let you know, every year, all the people in Jesus's time met to have this special meal. It was a meal where they would sit around their table and they would talk about the time when many, many years before Moses had led all the people out of the Egyptian slavery and taken them to a new land. And the food that they had, each bit of the food reminded them of something. And during that meal, there were two things that we remember today. There were two things that Jesus was eating. He had some bread and he had some wine at his meal. And Jesus said, you know, from now onwards though, I don't want you to remember back. I don't want you to remember Moses. I want you to remember me. And he took the bread and he took the bread into his hand and he broke it into pieces. And he shared some of the bread with all of his friends. And he said, take this bread, and every time you eat bread at this meal, I want you to remember me, because this is like my body. You're not going to see my body for much longer, but I want you to remember me. And then he poured some wine into the glasses, and he did the same with the wine. And he took the wine and he passed the cup around and he said, drink this and remember me, because this is like my blood. And I'm going to have to go away from you now. but I'm not going to stay away. I'm going to be here. I'm going to come back. And after that meal, the disciples didn't quite understand what was going on, but they knew that they could trust Jesus. And Jesus went off to a garden. He took a few of his friends and they went off to the garden. And I'm going to tell you the next part of the story next time. But whenever you get a chance, sit down with your family, have a meal, talk about the good times, talk about some funny things. Maybe if Grandma and Granddad can't come to your meal, why don't you just see if you can FaceTime them or Skype them so that they can sit at your table and see what you're doing. Have a bit of fun, enjoy your meals, and take care. We'll see you next time. Bye.